I'm gonna show you the easiest bread recipe. I am not a proficient bread baker, but I found a recipe that is so easy. I wanna share it with you today. So let's get started. I'm gonna start with 450 grams of all-purpose flour. And I'm gonna zero my scale off here and just measure that on the scale. I'll post a link to the recipe in the description. So if you need volume measurements instead of weight, you can refer back to that, but I'm gonna be weighing this out today. Okay, so I have 450 grams of all-purpose flour. To that, I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of yeast. This, I think, is instant yeast. I got it from a big bag from Costco, and I keep it in a jar in my freezer, and then I just keep moving a little bit at a time into my small jar that I keep in the fridge. And then 1 1/4 teaspoon of table salt. And then I'm just gonna mix that up a little bit. Get it all distributed throughout the flour. Move my scale out of the way. Okay, and then to this, I'm going to add 375 mils, which is 375 grams of warm water, not too hot because you don't want to kill your yeast. And then you're just gonna mix this up with the back of your spoon because you don't want to have too much of your spoon making contact with this sticky dough. Get it all mixed in, and once it's no longer looking dry, then you know you're done. So I've got a little bit more mixing to do. So the reason I am in a different kitchen is because we're staying here while we wait for our kids to finish school, and then we're going to be going to Edmonton where we're actually moving. And so we're staying in this really small house with a little kitchen, and in that little kitchen is a really, really little fridge, which I am not used to. I'm used to having a bigger fridge with ample freezer space. And normally I'll buy bread at Costco, and it'll come in 2 loaf packs, and we'll keep 1 out and throw 1 in the freezer. I don't have room to put bread in the freezer here. And so I thought, why don't I try baking bread? I've never been good at baking bread, but every now and then I try it and realize why I don't bake bread, and then I don't do it again for a long time. But here we are, and I decided to try baking this bread. So I went to one of my favorite food bloggers' websites, and she had a recipe for the easiest no-knead bread. So that's what I'm making today, and it really is super simple. Okay, so this is all mixed together. I'm just gonna clean that off afterward, but all I need to do now is cover this and let it sit for 2 to 3 hours until it is doubled in size and kind of looking bubbly. So I'll see you then. It has been 2 hours. My dough has doubled in size. I had to leave for an appointment, otherwise I might have started this a little bit sooner, but regardless, I'm gonna preheat my oven now. So I'm gonna take this Dutch oven and put it in the oven while the oven is heating up, and I'm gonna turn it up to 450 degrees. While the oven preheats to 450 degrees, I'm gonna get this dough shaped. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of flour and flour my work surface here. Then I can turn the dough out onto the counter, and we're just gonna, we're not kneading it, but we do need to shape it a little bit. So I'm gonna uncover this, and if you have a dough scraper, that would be ideal for this, but a spatula will do the trick. I'm gonna turn this dough onto the flour. And then you're supposed to just sprinkle it a little bit with flour on top, and then fold this onto itself just to shape it into a nice ball. And then we're gonna turn it upside down onto the parchment paper. And this is the trickiest part for me because especially with a spatula, I can't really get underneath it like I can with a dough scraper, but I'm gonna use my hands. There we go. And you don't have to cut the top of it, but I do like to score the top with a knife just to give it somewhere for the steam to release out of the loaf while it's baking. Like you would if you see people do fancy sourdough cuts on the top of their artisan loaves. This isn't a very fancy loaf of bread, but I like to just give it a nice deep score through here, just to give, like I said, somewhere for that steam to release. And then while the oven finishes preheating, I need to leave this just to sit here, but I'm gonna cover it with my bowl so that it doesn't get kind of a dry top while we're waiting. The oven has reached 450 degrees, so I'm gonna pull this bowl off of my bread, and then I'm gonna get the Dutch oven out of the oven. So if you don't have a Dutch oven to bake this bread with, that's fine. There are instructions for how to do it without a Dutch oven if you go to the recipe link that I'll have linked down below. But now I'm just gonna tuck this parchment paper inside here and then get the lid back on and put it in the oven for 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes, we'll come back and there's one more step. I'll see you then. The bread's been baking for 30 minutes now. I'm going to remove the lid from the Dutch oven and let it bake for another 10 minutes, and then we'll take it out. Ten minutes later, this bread is ready to pull out of here. Now what you want to do is just grab the parchment paper and pull it out of the pot and let it cool on a rack. Doesn't that look good? Okay, I'm gonna let this sit for at least 10 minutes before I sliced into it, because with bread, when you take it out of the oven, it's still baking. It's still really hot inside, so it's still gonna keep baking for a little while after it's been taken out of the oven. So I'm just gonna let this sit for 10 minutes and then I'll come back and slice into it, show you what it looks like inside. My bread is cooled off a little bit here, so I'm gonna slice into it and take a look inside and have a slice, see how it tastes. So there's the inside of my bread. You can see that I got a pretty nice rise out of it. And now I'm just gonna cut a slice for myself. If you've never baked bread before, it is so satisfying when you actually get it to turn out. In my experience, it's also pretty devastating when it doesn't turn out, but this loaf is really easy to get wrong. So here, let's have a taste. I can hear that nice crunchy crust. It's so good. Definitely try making this. If it doesn't turn out, try again. Because the more you make bread, the better you'll get at making bread. But thank you for hanging out with me today. Let me know if you give this a try, or if you have a tried and true bread recipe that you think I should try. I'd love to hear what it is. I'll see you next time. Bye.